At Third Space Charity, we support a mentally resilient community by offering accessible counseling care to young adults between the ages of 18 and 29. This is Mental Health Matters, where we discuss topics and services related to mental health and wellness in our community.
Hi, this is Mental Health Matters, and I'm Megan Woodruff. My guest today is Shahram. Welcome to the show, Sana.
Am I not supposed to wave? I'm so sorry.
You can wave. Hi. Hi. Nice to have you today.
Thank you for having me.
So you are an assistant professor with the UBCO School of Nursing.
Yes.
Okay, so what is your primary area of focus?
So I'm a little bit unique in my position at UBCO because I'm a non-nurse. So my background is in public health. And so my primary role is to conduct research, primarily around how do we make systems work better for all of us and how do we build a fairer world so that systems work in ways that allow all of us to reach our full potential. And I have some teaching duties, not in the School of Nursing because I'm not a nurse, so I usually teach in the Faculty of Health and Social Development or Health and Exercise Science. And I also supervise and train graduate students.
Okay, well you have such a fun, bubbly personality. I can see you being really fun in the classroom.
Tell my students that.
Yeah. So what led you to pursue a career in academia and being a professor?
Yeah, so I think I did my master's in public health. I did it with a practicum focus. I never really imagined being in the research world. But when I started to do that work and I was working with young Indigenous mothers and exploring the ways our systems do or don't support women when they are at risk of being harmed by systems, when they're using substances during pregnancy, etc., it became really clear to me that the work really needed to happen further upstream than where programs and services were usually focused. And we needed to think about how do we change the structures and social determinants of health and those pieces. And so the more I learned about that, the more I realized that research was a really important tool for doing that. And so I decided to pursue my PhD so that I could lead my own independent research program. And so one of the things I always tell people who are thinking about a PhD is don't do it unless there's literally no other route towards the work that you want to be doing, because it's super challenging, it can be isolating, etc. But if you're super passionate about the work that you want to do and the work that you want to lead, then that's what keeps you going. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Don't do it unless you're very passionate about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And that carries you through.
Exactly. Unless there's a question that you just can't sleep at night without sort of being part of the solution and helping to drive that change from a research perspective.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So tell us about, you're part of a really cool local initiative. Tell us about Clarity. What does it stand for?
So Clarity stands for, let me get it exactly right. It took me many nights with a thesaurus to get this right. Community-led approaches for resiliency important throughout youth.
That is a mouthful.
Yes, and that's why Clarity. And so really, the acronym works on a number of levels. What we're trying to do is gain clarity on how we can approach the issue and tragedy of youth suicide from the perspective of activating community. So building communities that are resilient so that youth themselves don't need to be resilient on an individual level, but we're building communities that are built for the thriving of youth, their families, and their communities so that people feel socially connected, that they feel like they belong, and they feel like we have inclusive climates. And
so give us some tangible examples of how Clarity does that.
Yeah, so one of the really exciting initiatives that we have going on right now is we're building what we call the ROYCE, or the Regional Okanagan Youth Council. We love acronyms.
I went to one of your meetings.
Yes,
I did. Yeah.
And so what we're doing through that is we found that through our work with community over the last 3 or 4 years, we found that all of the organizations that are hoping to serve youth in the Okanagan, they all want to learn from and be led by youth. And so what was happening is that each of these organizations who have limited budgets, they work on grants that typically run out year after year or every couple of years. They're scrambling to create their own youth councils. So maintaining their own group of youth that they can take questions to, help plan their programs with, etc. But that ends up being pretty redundant. So each organization has their own youth council. They're having to use resources, time, et cetera, to build those. And so what we decided would be something that would help all of the organizations in the Okanagan was if Clarity could host a regional youth council where all of these organizations could come and talk with youth and get their input without having to maintain them. And so that results in a number of really good benefits. One, it allows those organizations to hear from a broader and more diverse array of youth, because it's not just 10 people, it's, you know, potentially upwards of 50 or 100 youth that they can hear from. It also creates an intervention in and of itself. So the Regional Okanagan Youth Council, the way that we are currently piloting it, it has what we call assemblies, which is where people bring questions to the group and they help shape their community, which is an intervention in and of itself because they're creating better programs and better services. But also we have what's called Royce Hangouts. And so these are more casual, informal spaces where we curate experiences and partnerships with people in the community, where there's places that youth can go connect with people who are like-minded, explore things that they haven't explored before. And in that way, we're creating a really reciprocal relationship. So the youth are getting something out of that. They're getting something that actually builds community, builds belonging, builds connection, all of which we know helps reduce risk factors for youth suicide. And they are also integral in lending their voices to shaping the community that they want to be a part of. And so it's multi-layered, multi-partnered, and it's the exact type of initiative that I get really excited about because it's leveraging the strengths of community, of our funders, of research, of experts, and most importantly, of youth.
I was curious about what it means to be a youth-led initiative.
Yes.
I think that you pretty much summed that up, but and it does make sense that these youth-led organizations, or not youth-led, these organizations that are services for youth want to know what's important to their demographic.
Absolutely.
But it can be hard to reach that demographic on like a consistent, regular basis. It's really great.
Yeah, so one of the really important things we've been working on for almost the last 2 years in partnership and led by youth, again, was the development of what we call the Clarity Partnership Charter. And what the Partnership Charter does is it lays out some values and principles that are equity driven, that allow us to actualize these really big ideals about what does youth-led projects look like? What does it mean to be in reciprocal relationships? What does it mean to not just extract information from youth, but have them as actual partners and leaders in a program? And so what we're doing in this next year of piloting the Royce is we're testing that charter out to see if we can make good on those promises. Because what we've heard from youth, and what I think is really powerful from youth, is that we often underestimate their contributions that they can make, and yet they are really passionate about shaping our future because they're the ones who inherit all of the decisions that we make. They're really passionate about being involved in not only things that impact youth, but things that impact society as a whole, because they're an important voice, an important perspective that we often don't have at the decision-making table. And I find it really refreshing to hear from youth, because sometimes we're just so caught up in the way we think things ought to work or the way things work, and then you need someone who hasn't been sort of ingrained in that system to say, well, why are you doing it like that? It could be so much easier if you did X, Y, and Z. And so in that way, our project continues to sort of pivot and innovate on the spot, because we hear from youth and then we have to change the way we're doing stuff, because usually they have much better ideas than what we have thought up in the first place.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so great. So why specifically is clarity important?
So clarity is sort of a backbone structure that has brought together community leaders, people with influence in the health system, government, hospitals, the KGH Foundation, so private donors who are interested in this issue, the Blank Family Institute, to get together and really seek solutions together. So much of the work and sort of resources and research that happens primarily in the field of things like suicide is identifying risk, identifying and quantifying a problem, and yet we spend far less time reimagining what solutions could look like, and especially reimagining the role of community. And yet what we know from the research that co-lead Dr. Plamond and I do is that those systems, those structures and community are actually far more powerful in shifting the tide on an issue like suicide than many of our sort of acute care and reactive and risk-based services. Those services are immensely important when somebody is already at risk, and yet they do very little to prevent risk in the first place. And so clarity is pushing back on some of those ideas and asking us to approach the question a little bit differently and think about what role can we, and actually are we obligated to play in facing this tragedy and epidemic of youth suicide from a solutions perspective, so that we're not always reacting to chaos or acute risk, but instead we're building a situation where fewer youth are at risk of suicidality to begin with.
Is the school district involved?
Yes, absolutely. We have the school
that
district
just popped
on
in
board.
my head. I thought they probably should be if they're not. Yeah,
and it's really nice. The advisory that we have is so passionate and so active, and they really do a great job of, we sort of started with the smaller advisory and we just keep expanding because folks come onto the advisory and they say, hey, have you thought about so-and-so? They're doing work in this area. And so part of the work that we've been doing over the last year is expanding our advisory and our network beyond sort of what we call the usual suspects. So often when we think about suicide, we talk about mental health care and we talk about health care.
Yes.
But we often don't think beyond that. And so we include partners from things like Elevation Outdoors, which is an organization that is increasing access of youth to outdoor sports. And we're including local business owners. So Lisa Burke and Burke Hair Salon, for example, they often donate space to us and they're hosting the Kelowna Community Fridge and things like that. And so we're really trying to harness this spark of what's happened during the pandemic with the climate emergency, with the toxic drug supply emergency. I think more than ever, people are recognizing that we are all connected. Our well-being is bound to each other. And it's not just health organizations or mental health organizations, but it's everybody in our society, in our community who want to do something, and yet they often don't know what that something is. And so Josh Raphael, who's been coordinating our Royce work, he's been so integral in building connections with community and actually private business. And so one of our events, the Dungeons and Dragons Nights, gets hosted at the Board Game Cafe. And so that's a beautiful example of a local business that has concern and integration into the community, and they want to get involved. And our sort of long-term vision for Clarity is how do we build on that? How do we include, chefs and restaurants and hairdressers and all these people who want to do something for youth but don't have an avenue to do that, and Clarity is providing that.
Oh, so good. It's just thinking outside of who you would typically enroll in these things, because all of us are connected and all of us have opinions on these things and want to support. So I think that's amazing. So shifting a little bit, gears here. This is a difficult question for some people to answer,
Sure.
but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why does the world need people like you?
Oh God, I don't know, do they?
We do, we really do.
Well, how else will you know what activity Beyonce's up to if I'm not there to tell everybody? I think what the world needs and what I'm hoping to be is people who are more capable and willing to hold on to hope. Because we're seeing with more connection and social media, and we have our phones in our hands 24 hours a day now. We just have information coming at us all the time, and I think one of the things that can result in is making us feel kind of hopeless, because if all you ever see is the bad news in the world, it's hard to remember that even with tenacious systems of injustice, even with tenacious and big challenges that are facing us, we are eminently powerful. And so the more we can work collectively, the more we can embrace whatever our unique gifts are to contribute to a situation, the more we can start to shift that tide. And I think myself and Katrina, one of our big dreams as equity scientists and equity scholars is how do we shift the narrative from sort of this punitive sort of cancel culture that it's about if you get the words right and everything needs to be perfect, to embracing imperfection and inviting all of us into more future-oriented conversations that remember that collectively we are stronger than we are apart, that if we can have synergy where we can do more together than we can do apart, where we can have harmony, where we're all working collectively towards some type of shared future, we hold all of that power. And I hope that that's what we can infuse the world with, is practical tools and resources that take these super big, intangible ideas sometimes and make them really easy for us to pick up a piece of that and do it, whether we are artists or researchers or healthcare workers or PAC members or parents, that we all have something to contribute, and it's actually all unique and incredibly important to the movement.
If people want to find out more about Clarity and what you are up to,
Yes.
how can they find you?
The most active place they can follow us is on Instagram.
Okay.
So we have an Instagram account that is, I think, at the _clarity_project.
Okay.
And that's where our most up-to-date information is.
Thank you for joining us for Mental Health Matters. We'll see you next time. Welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm Megan Woodruff, and my guest today is Barb Egan.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks for having me.
coming. Oh, so good. Barb and I get to work together all the time. We get to see each other all the time. So this is just an extension of a lovely talk that we normally would have. So it's great for you to be here. So you are a clinical counselor in Kelowna.
Yes.
What led you to pursue a career in counseling?
Oh, that's such a good question. So before I was in counseling, and I think any therapist who has been on the other side of the seat, who gets it, that lived experience, that empathy of knowing what it's like to feel stuck or overwhelmed, alone, and then have someone come with you in that is amazing. So I felt that. I had a felt sense experience of that, of someone coming alongside of me, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So my background is in athletics, professional athletics, hockey in particular. So I played hockey, I coached hockey professionally, and so you see a lot of things in sport. It's kind of a microcosm of life, of stress, of the ups, of the downs. And I mean, sports psychology was kind of a thing, even not really in that sense. I was a goaltender, so that was more accepted. But I just went through a lot of highs and lows and injuries, and I was American. So I thought I was gonna come to Vancouver in 2010 to win an Olympic gold medal. But I'm American, so that did not happen. And I blew out my wrist actually in Lake Placid at our Olympic Training Center for Team USA. Oh. And so my whole identity, my whole life that I worked towards now crumbled. And it was really shaking for me. And so sports psychology was great in mental performance and how to enhance my performance on the ice. But now all of that was taken away. I had an injury. I ended up having 3 major wrist reconstruction surgeries. Wow. But it was just journeying with me in this new identity. That was really big for me, and I sought counseling and how to manage that, and the stress and the depression, the grief, the anxiety, the overwhelm, the what do I do now, who am I? And that just was really life-changing. So I moved to Canada, I was working in hockey, and in that I saw that in my players too, working at University of British Columbia, and I just saw that they were going through stuff and I could help them, but I wanted more tools. So I went back, I got my Master's of Counseling Psychology, and I've been a counselor ever since.
And thank goodness you are.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Helped a lot of people in this community.
Aw, it's amazing. I love this community. Yeah.
So that brings me to, well, you're involved in this community on multiple different levels with different projects you have going on and businesses and roles. Yeah. So Tell me first about Alive Counselling and how that came to be.
Yeah, so I own Alive Counselling. I came to Kelowna, so I was in Vancouver for a few years working there. I was in Kelowna. I was actually part of Third Space when it was in the early infancy stages, which was really great. I got to do my practicum here. I worked as a therapist there when we had, I think there was 8 of us who were running our own private practice under the Third Space umbrella. And so that's when I decided to make my own private practice Alive, but I still partnered with Third Space. And then the pandemic hit, and so we kind of shifted to the Third Space charity model that it is now with the students and that 18 to 29 and the clinical supervision. So that's part of what I do now, but Alive was really born through that early stages of post-practicum, going into private practice, but I was still with a team that I really liked with Third Space and kind of really just started that way in the community. I did a lot of community speaking events, a lot of events in that of just building, and then still involved with Third Space as the clinical supervisor role. So I do work with now with therapists that are coming out who maybe join Alive or other practices. It's just an awesome managing and mentoring kind of role and experience there. So we have 2 locations in Kelowna.
And so there's Alive Counselling, and then you are also a clinical supervisor with Third Space Charity. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so that is so fun because basically that's a fun part of our job as counselors is, I mean, we love working with people, with couples, with families, with groups, but getting to teach the up and coming therapists really what it's like in the field is such a joy, and it's amazing to walk alongside of these people because you see the ripple effect. You get to ask them really great questions of getting in their head, of understanding how they think they're going to help somebody, and just stepping into that, owning that, creating their style. And it's just amazing of just even wondering why counseling, why now for people. And it's so cool to see, I mean, all the interviews that we do of candidates coming, it has grown tremendously of just even, the last few years, and it's incredible of how many people we get to help because of that. So I kind of equate it similar to like Grey's Anatomy, is that we get to be like the teaching physicians, but it's not that cool. It's not as much drama either, but
it's not steamy like
yes.
So good. Yeah. So we actually have, I was counting this up the other day. Since 2019, we have 42 alumni.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think over 70% of them are still in the Okanagan.
Wow.
Running their own practices or working in agencies. Isn't that's the ripple effect?
Right. Yes. Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
And so then when our interns graduate, you actually employ some of them after they graduate?
Oh, yeah.
Or how, tell us how that works.
Yes, so I get to just form these relationships almost a whole year long of their practicum. Of 8 months of their practicum, I get to supervise them for either parts of that, or throughout that time I just get to know them. And so counseling's all about rapport and relationship. And so when you get to really connect with someone or want to learn from someone, you want to spend time with them and kind of learn in that sense. And so again, from my background of athletics and coaching, just creating a team atmosphere, because this is heavy work, like just taking it home. And even if, you have a supportive family or friends, you can't talk about it in the same way. They don't understand it. There's confidentiality, all of these things, but you need people who kind of get it too. And I think that's why Alive is so great, because we have that team atmosphere. And so, someone will see one of the family members, and then one of our other counselors will see a child in that family. And we get to just really holistically care for people. So that's amazing.
Oh, so cool. So we're heading into the fall.
Yeah.
Change of seasons. Sometimes this can impact people's mental health.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to those in our community about how to be mentally well coming into the darker months?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I think a lot of people, the change, like anytime there's change, stress, anxiety, those are actually pretty normal responses. So it's okay if you're experiencing that. knowing that change will happen. It's a good thing, thinking of what it could bring, what kind of freedom it could bring, what kind of new rhythm, what could you gain from it, instead of, oh no, how am I going to do this, or what it's taking away or limiting you from. So I think kind of holding on to your mindset and shifting that if you can. Again, working with someone or just a supportive friend or family member can help you, just encourage you. Find the things you're doing well. In hockey, when I was coaching, we would say, celebrate the little things. And that could be, a tape to tape pass, like something so little, but in seasons of transition, knowing that, okay, the darker months are gonna come up too, or, oh no, last winter, this is what it was like for me, of trying to find, okay, what could go well here. Bite-sized pieces are gonna be really helpful. Celebrating those little things of, okay, I went the whole, I found a new route to school today, or I'm applying to a new job here and I did it. I showed up to the interview, and positive rewards. Get yourself a coffee after or something. Find something that you do well every day and really acknowledge that. Whatever you look for, you're going to find. So if you're looking for things, oh no, I'm worried that this may happen, or I'm worried that this negative thing from last year is going to happen again. Or you could look for, hey, I showed up this way. Hey, I tried something new today. Hey, I learned this. I made a new friend today. I was kind today. I gave myself some compassion today. If you look for that, you're going to find that. You're going to fill your cup with more of that too.
What you look for is what you'll find.
Mm-hmm. If you look for the bad, you're going to find lots of that. But if you look for the good, you are going to find that. We can train our mind to really look for it too.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm. That's so good. So I know the answer to this question, but I want to hear it from you. Why does the world need people like you?
Oh, I mean, who doesn't have stuff as people? Like, we all have stuff, and we all deserve to walk with someone who really cares for us non-judgmentally and just to encourage us along the way. You would not wait until every single bone in your body was broken to show up at the doctor or at the hospital. You do not have to wait until everything in your life is crumbling to show up to counseling. Prevention's often the best treatment plan.
I think so.
But at the bottom part is like, we all are human, we all have stuff, and we're created for connection. So finding that right fit with your counselor is the most important part of it all.
Yes, you can go to counseling and maybe it isn't the right fit.
Right.
That doesn't mean that all counseling is not the right fit.
Right.
It's just that particular personality.
Yeah.
It's like friendships
Yeah.
or any other relationship,
Yeah.
really.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's a good thing to reiterate.
We see people come and say, I've been to counseling before, and this is what I liked, and this is maybe what I didn't like, or what I didn't get out of it based on this approach, or now it's just a new time to explore some other things now. And that's completely okay too. Yeah.
So at the charity, we put a huge emphasis on caring for the carers and really fostering and facilitating the ability for us to take care of ourselves so we can go out there and do this work from a full cup. I'd love to hear, what are your typical self-care pieces that help you stay healthy?
Right, because empty cups cannot pour, that is for sure. So for me, and it's different for everybody, and I think different seasons of life look different. So I have 4 little kids. So for me, in my real life, what it looks like is I am a morning person. I like to wake up alone. before people, so that means I have to go to sleep early too, so I can wake up early, and I have my coffee and I read and I have my time, and it's just beautiful. I'll journal, I have a devotional that I'll read or things like that. It just helps me center, and if I do that, I just see that ripple effect. Like, I'm more present in my relationships, I'm a better mom, I'm a better wife, I'm a better counselor, I'm a better friend, and that just sets the tone for the day. So for me, that's huge. Exercise, again, being a former hockey player, exercise is big for me, and people. Like, I just think getting around safe, supportive people where you can just be you and you're accepted, you're seen, you're loved for who you are is so important. So I would say those are like my go-to.
So if people want to come see you at your clinic or they want to apply to be one of your interns, how people reach you?
Yeah, so alivecounseling.com is our website. Alive Counseling is our clinic here in Kelowna. And so you can go on there, you can give us a call, things like that. And so for interns or being a practicum student, Third Space Charity is where I supervise with, and it's a ton of fun, so highly recommend it.
Thank you so much for your time today,
Yeah.
Barb. It was wonderful having you on the
Aw,
show.
thank you. Thanks for having me, Megan. Thanks.
And that wraps up this episode of Mental Health Matters. We'll see you next time.